All right, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Chuck. Kitty's
Yes,
around here
indeed.
somewhere.
Thank you, Derek.
So we're going to get into part 2 of our 4-part study on faith. We're just going to go right into it. Last time we talked about true faith. This time we're going to be talking about living faith. So
right.
Chuck, if you got some stuff for us.
Sure. Well, we have this title slide, which I think is very interesting. This is the story of Veronica, which many of you may be familiar with. She had a lifetime ailment and she was desperately seeking to be healed and made her way through the jostling crowd of people and made it up to the point where she could actually touch Jesus's hem, the hem of his garment.
Yeah.
And at that point, she was healed. And this is the comment that comes out of that. And by the way, this painting this is a mural from a chapel in Israel, a beautiful chapel. So she says, "Master, I touched the border of your garment and I was made whole. I know that I have been healed of my affliction." And then when Jesus heard this, he said, "Daughter, your faith has made you whole. Go in peace." So your faith has made you whole. Go in peace. And then the midwifer's comment, he desired all to know that it was her pure and living faith that had wrought the cure, not her touch. So that may have been important to her symbolically, or to take that action to express her faith. But it was really her living faith that wrought the cure. So that's our theme for this short study. We're going to be going a little into that idea of what exactly is meant by living faith.
Yeah. And I really do like how this kind of segues. Great job, Chuck, of setting this up from true faith that we were talking about into now living it out or exercising in it.
Yeah. The idea that faith is alive. It's an expression of life. It's not a fixed belief. It's not a superstition. It's not any of those things. It's actually a living engagement with reality.
As we said last time, a relationship.
Right, exactly. In this case, it was with her and Jesus, and he didn't even know she was there, but he could feel it. He said, "Oh, I feel like life has gone from me," or something like that.
Life has gone forth from me.
Yeah.
But I like the analogy here too, or it's like a metaphor of her seeing herself being healed because she touched his garment. And that being, like we were talking about, this belief in a material thing. Right. And then him saying, "No, it was your faith." And I think that it's kind of a metaphor of how we all kind of see faith right now, that we still are stuck in between this belief and living thing. Right.
But it shows the quality of love of Jesus in this instance, where even with her misunderstanding, she was still healed. It's not like he had to correct her. Here, touch me again and we'll see if it works. You know what I mean?
Good point.
The love from him flowed into her.
Well, that's the faintest flicker of faith.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But then he wanted to clarify, make sure people understood, which they evidently didn't even to this day.
Right.
But still, that was kind of the spirit of it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's how generous the Lord is. Everybody.
Exactly. He'll honor your faith when it's mobilized to the best of your own capacity to do that, which is always a growing capacity, but it's limited at any moment.
As a good parent would.
Yeah, same, right.
If your child is make-believing something that an adult would do, you still honor their intention.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me read this first one.
Go for it.
Man's sole contribution to growth is the mobilization of the total powers of his personality, living faith. So you could read this backwards too. Living faith is the mobilization of the total powers of an individual's personality.
Right. It's almost like a definition.
That's pretty cool. But we, how we were talking about, the spiritual vitality that comes from living faith.
In the last show.
Yeah. And so then this mobilization of the total powers of a personality, that's pretty awesome. Personality being, directive in this sense.
Yeah. And to think about that in terms of oneself, we all have powers in a sense. We have abilities, we have talents, we have experience, we have things we can do. We have desires of our heart, all the things that motivate us and the things that we're capable of. And to take all of that and bring it to a level of mobilization is kind of a challenging but fascinating and exciting challenge to be offered.
Well, plus when you're a human and your inheritance is divinely creative, you can have all sorts of fantasies in your mind of what the mobilization of your powers might look like. But that's all fantasy until you start to mobilize. And once you mobilize, you'll soon realize that you have a lot of growing to do. And then that's where the relationship starts. That's when you get in that laboratory with God and start getting better.
Right. Yeah, mobilization precedes action. It's preparation for action. It's not preparation to just be in a state. It's preparation for action. And that's what they're talking about here. And when this action then unifies all the powers of your personality, then you can reach possibilities that are unattainable otherwise.
Oh yeah, I can speak from my experience of when I started training martial arts.
Yeah.
I had this perspective of what martial arts was from movies, and what it would look like, how strong I would be to punch something. But then soon when reality came and you learn, you're not as strong as you thought. Everything is perfect up here. It's all perfect. You can do anything up here, potentially. But when it comes down to mobilizing all of that into some kind of action, it takes a while, a process until you can be good at something. There's a process that you have to grow. You can't just immediately be what your hopeful potentials are.
Right.
You have to build into them, or grow into them.
Yeah.
And so that for me was very real and very visceral. The difference between what I thought I would be like when I wasn't doing it versus when I got on the other end of quasi mastering something to then seeing what it really takes to develop these powers, to mobilize all these together.
And then you get a new sense of where it can go too. Yeah. So this is almost an invitation to maybe even just do a survey within oneself. What are the powers of my personality? What am I capable of currently and potentially on many levels, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, personally, and to begin to cultivate an awareness of one's own powers, not in a sense of trying to be powerful over other people, but in the sense of trying to bring all those powers to bear in some form of service.
Well, I like that because it's reflective of what can I have that I can give.
Right.
Instead of what can I get? I need to get something else. I need to get somebody else, or I need to be aligned with these certain powers.
Only I could do this, then I could do that.
Yeah.
But there's always something we can do now. We have powers of our personality at every moment in their current state of development, whatever that is. And to just get a sense of that and bring that to bear to mobilize that is kind of what they're talking about here, I think.
Yeah. Wow.
This is the gateway, in other words, to everything else almost.
It is. Yeah. I appreciate that. Okay, let me read this next one. So living faith here. It lifts man out of himself and beyond himself when he once fully realizes that there lives and strives within him something which is eternal and divine. And so it is that a living faith in the superhuman origin of our ideals validates our belief that we are the sons of God. I can attest to that development of finding something beyond myself and in this living faith kind of understanding my identity of being a child of God, and how only through that living relationship of identity of being a child of God can I be greater than I am. Overcome our
Purely human limitations. I mean, that's one of the things we struggle with, is we're evolved, in a sense, from animals. So we're in this fleshy body, which is essentially of an animal nature, but it's been upstepped to include spirit connectivity. The fifth, sixth, and seventh adjutants we don't share with the animals. We have those to our, only humans have those. And that's what enables us to know God enables us to feel the presence of God and respond to spirit impulses from within. So this idea that there's this entity that's living within us, which would be our adjuster, or the Spirit of God alive within us, it's working already, right? Mm-hmm. It's already, there lives and strives within him. So the fact that there's something within me that's already at work on these high potentials, then it's like, now I'm being invited to like join in and collaborate, become part of that effort. But the fact that it's kind of ongoing already is sort of trippy and fun to think about.
Yeah. And it's not reflected in society that that's going on. Because it's kind of like, I don't want to be pessimistic, but it's kind of like there's the material broadcast and the inner broadcast, and the material broadcast never wants you to turn it off.
Yeah, right.
And if you never turn off the material broadcast, how are you going to listen to the inner broadcast?
Yeah.
Right? But the whole goal is to find that inner broadcast, because this is where you find this thing that's striving within me for that's eternal and divine.
Right. And then that also is the clue to our true nature as children of God. That's our inheritance, our genetics, if you will, our spiritual genetics are revealed in the action of this spirit that lives within us. So when we reach for that and realize that that really is what validates our highest ideals and all of that, then we can feel that sense of kinship, that kinship to the divine, which is what they're encouraging us to discover.
Yeah. Right on. All right. Well, you got a slide here. Let's see.
So here's the next slide. This one's kind of interesting in maybe some different ways. Reason, wisdom, and faith are man's highest human attainments. Reason introduces man to the world of facts, to things. Wisdom introduces him to a world of truth, to relationships. Faith initiates him into a world of divinity and spiritual experience. So this combination, the comment that reason, wisdom, and faith are, in a way, our highest attainments individually, is very kind of inspiring and enlightening to think, to consider the importance of all three of those. They work together. They work as a whole to make sure that we're grounded in facts. We understand about things. We're living in a world of things. But then we can also engage in relationships, and that's where wisdom comes in. So the connection of wisdom to relationship, I think, is very interesting. And then finally, of course, faith is what takes us into the discovery, really, of the nature of divinity. Yeah,
I feel like reason, wisdom, and faith are internal processes of something that might reflect also in a material process or intellectual process of science, philosophy, religion.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Reason, the world of things, is clearly science. Wisdom, I suppose, could be almost equated with philosophy, and of course, faith is about spiritual experience.
I like how truth is. Wisdom introduces him to a world of truth, to relationships, and I just always think of like Jesus being the truth and being this revelation of a relationship with God in his life and in our experience with him. It's this pattern of revealing the relationship potentials with God. And that's the truth.
Right.
We can see it as the truth. That is the truth here. We're children of God.
And then you think about the spirit of truth.
Doing that as well.
From Jesus enables us to it gives us a truth sense. It strengthens our convictions of truth, our ability to recognize truth, and wisdom grows from that. If you can't recognize truth, it's hard to be wise.
True.
So there's a clear path through all of these, crowned by this potential for spiritual experience, which is, the true.
And then it's always faith, though, that comes in. I mean, that's your on-ramp.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, well, and faith also takes us into this sort of, maybe I shouldn't harp on this, but into the realm of invisibility. I mean, we can see things, and we can see the people, at least, we're having relationships with, and we can see the outcomes, in terms of this sort of truth they're talking about. But to engage in a relationship with deity, you have to have an extension. You have to expand your sense of reality, your framing of reality, to include personality presence that we can't physically see with our eyes.
Suspend disbelief.
Suspend disbelief.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take that leap of faith.
Yeah.
Talk to God and see what happens.
And the cool thing is you can do it alone, so don't worry. You won't get ridiculed if you're too externally validated.
Who's he talking? Who's he talking to over there? It's like one of those people walking down the street, just like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember one time I was jogging in Denver, and this woman was waving to the sky. It's in the morning, and I jogged by her, and I was like, "Hey, who are you waving at out there?" She's like, "The angels." And I was like, "Oh, all right, well, wave from me too."
Give him away from me too.
Yeah. But it was very real for her.
That's perfect. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, it is real.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's as real as we're able to grasp and engage with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, you got this last one.
Yeah. Let's go for that. Okay. Here we have two. I'll just read these. This is Jesus talking. He says, "I have come to proclaim spiritual liberty, teach eternal truth, and foster living faith."
Mm.
And then they comment that faith is to religion what sails are to a ship. It is an addition of power, not an added burden of life.
Mm.
So these go together in an interesting way, I think. But that he's coming to proclaim spiritual liberty. In other words, in knowing God, we find liberty, and that there are truths that are eternal. I mean, we have truths that come and go every day, maybe, or facts or whatever, but there are eternal truths that we can begin to have as part of our being, the living of those truths. And then, of course, then the fostering of living faith comes from the combination of these other two. So that's a kind of a very, very understandable, almost like a formula for how to grow spiritually. And then this idea that faith is like a sail on a ship, that it adds power. We get the wind to our back, there's already a flow of reality going on.
That we're tapping into.
That we can tap into by raising our sails of faith.
Our wings.
Whatever. There's different ways of thinking about that. But it's in all of those, it's a method of engagement where we engage with power that's already there.
Absolutely. And these quotes made me think of how service for a friend is a privilege, right? And not a burden. Of real service, right? And so we're talking about like faith is an added benefit to what you are, an added power, not an added burden.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, it kind of feels like us exercising faith is serving God in a way. Like, and it is because we're growing a relationship with someone, and just growing a relationship with God is serving the whole.
Right. Well, and it's also
us and the whole.
Yeah, right. And it does that in some ways by being an antidote to fear and doubt.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's often what stops us in our tracks. We have this great idea. Oh, yeah, I could help out over here and do something. But then, maybe I better not. Maybe something bad will happen, or maybe this, or maybe I'm not really up to it. Maybe I'm not capable. All these doubts and fears can so quickly rush into our minds. But faith is sort of the antidote to all of that, where you say, no, I'm going to take the leap of faith. Yeah. I'm going to know that I'm not alone. If I had this idea, then probably the chances are I can grow into it.
Yeah, I can concur. I mean, many times this year alone where I've been like, I don't know if I can do this thing, but I know God's here with me, and I know it can be done.
Yeah.
I'm really not feeling like I know I can do it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, with me,
but
let's try it.
Yeah. And that's the thing about being alive.
Yeah.
That's the thing about living faith. It's we're alive, and we have growth potentials, which aren't true of static states. So the key here is to grasp that and be willing to grow.
Yeah.
And faith is all about that. So when they talk about living faith, it's actually a living experience. It contributes to our lives in a living way.
In a way so that our wisdom grows, so that we can share these fruits with others.
Yeah.
Kind of like what we're attempting to do here.
Sure. Yeah, of course. And what everybody can do every day and with everyone they meet.
Yeah, and it never ends.
It never ends. Yeah, that's the thing about living things. They have a permanence. Yeah. Growth potential. You can't ever really see the end from the beginning. necessarily. I mean,
Absolutely.
in terms of eternal potentials, you just have to live every day as ourselves and know that that's ahead for us.
Well, all right. Even though this study seems like it won't end, we've got 2 more parts, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks for joining us for Living Faith.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chuck, for all your work.
We'll see you on the next one.
And we'll see you guys in the next
Look at
one.
2 more aspects of this.
All right.
All right.